The light hitting my face right now is the Amaran Halo 600X, and for the past few weeks it has been my main key light for everything I've shot on this channel. Now Amaran sent me the 600X, the 200X and the 100X to test. You do not get to see this video before it goes live, so whatever I say in these videos is exactly what I think. When I first unboxed the 600X, I'm not gonna lie, I genuinely thought this thing was ridiculous. Too small to produce that much power and way too powerful for a talking head setup like this. 600 watts for YouTube videos is just felt unnecessary. But after using it for the past few weeks, I completely changed my mind. And today I'm gonna walk you through exactly why. Where the 100X fits, where the 200X fits, and where the 600 makes sense. Because when people buy lights for their studio, the thing they really get wrong is the wattage. This is actually the first time I'm reviewing Amaran lights on the channel. I reviewed lights from Godox, Nanlite, Sure, iFootage, Stonecrafter, pretty much every lighting brand creators run into eventually. So this isn't a first impressions video. I've actually lived with this light for a few weeks now, and I'll tell you exactly what I know. Alright, let's talk about wattage, because this is where a few people mess up all the time. Someone goes online looking for a light for YouTube videos like this, buys the cheapest 100 watt they can find, then wonders why it can't push through a softbox. Or they go in the complete opposite direction, buy a 600 watt monster, and the thing just completely overwhelms their room. This is the Halo X 100 watt power draw, around 84 watts of actual output, and honestly this thing surprised me. It's tiny, you can see how small it is, weighs around 420 grams, runs off USB-C power, delivery or DC power, and that USB-C port matters. We'll come back to it later. A lot of people are going to look at this and think it's a beginner light. It's not. I've used this outdoors, I've used it indoors with a softbox lantern for a lens test. I've even had someone handhold it during an outdoor shoot in the evening, and which ran into the night, plugged into a V-mount battery via USB-C, and it was more than enough. Alright, this is the Halo 200X, 200 watts of power draw, around 179 watts of output, roughly 1.9 kilos, and honestly, this is probably the light most people watching this video are actually looking to buy. Big enough to push through a proper softbox at 30 to 40% power, small enough to comfortably live on a C-stand in a normal size room. So if your content looks anything like this one or this setup I'm doing right now, this is probably the one you should buy. And then there's the Halo 600X, 610 watts of power draw, 545 watts of power output, and somehow only weighing around 2.9 kilos, which is generally insane when you think about it, because I own several 300 watt lights with external power bricks that are physically bigger than the 600X. This thing produces over 47,000, up to 47,000 lux from my own test at 1 meter without a reflector, and honestly that scared me at first. But after using it properly, I realized the real magic of this light isn't the power, it's the headroom it gives you. So like I said earlier on, the 600X has been my main key light for the last few weeks, and the way I'm running it is actually pretty interesting. I've got a third-party reflector attached to the light because these Halo lights don't come with reflectors when you buy them in a box. That reflector helps control the spread, but it also boosts the output slightly. Then I'm pushing that light through a massive newer 150 by 200 centimeter diffuser, which is very close to me and further away from the light, basically the size of a duvet. And here's the important part, I'm usually running this thing at around 5 to 9%. Currently it's at 7% brightness, and this is what people don't realize about powerful light. A bigger light running at low power almost always does better and looks better than a smaller light running near full power. The fall off looks smoother, the shadows look cleaner, and skin tones look richer. And because the light isn't working hard, the fan barely spins. That's the real secret of the 600X. When you use it properly, it doesn't behave like a 600 watt light. It behaves like a super clean 90 watt light with endless headroom. And that headroom matters because if I suddenly want to bounce light off the ceiling or light something further into the background behind me or compete against daylight coming through a window, I've got the power there instantly. So for this setup right now, the Halo 600X is at about 67 feet away from the diffuser. And quickly before we continue, if you're considering picking up any of these lights, links to all three are there in the description below. And if you've been enjoying the video so far, please hit the subscribe button. So I've now switched over the 200X Right now it's sitting around 23% brightness, roughly match what the 600X was doing. And honestly, I think this still looks really good. And now if I drop down to around 7%, let me show you, I'm at 23% brightness. And if I drop it to 7%, just to match what the 600X was at, so it's currently on the Amaran app is now set to 7%. You can see the difference this makes to the lighting. So now it's at 23%. I want to tell you about my favorite things about this newer Halo light. There's no external ballast, no dangling power brick hanging halfway down the light stand, just one cable straight into the back of the light. And if you've ever built out a multi-light setup before, you already know why this matters. Cleaner setup, faster setup, less cable mess, less confusion. And the menu system from this light is genuinely solid as well. You've got dual knobs, easy navigation, NFC pairing with the Amaran light. Everything feels designed for people who actually use light every day. And something I really rate, every single light here supports DMX control. Now, most YouTubers won't care about that, but if you ever move into commercial work, narrative shots, bigger productions, these lights slot right into proper studio workflows. But my favorite feature on all of them is studio mode. You basically set the light to remember its previous state. So if your lights are connected to a power strip, one switch turns your entire setup back on exactly how you left it. Same brightness, same color temperature, same everything. And honestly, that tiny workflow improvement saves time every single time or every single day you're going to start shooting. And finally, the 100X. Tiny light, lower output, but to match what the 600X was doing earlier at around 7%, this thing is now sitting at roughly 50% brightness. And there are two reasons this light punches way above its weight. First, full buoyant mount, and this matters way more than people realize because most compact lights at this size use tiny proprietary mount, meaning you end up buying adapters for everything, and with this, every modifier you already own just works. Lanterns, grids, snots, everything, and that's a massive win. Second thing is USB-C power delivery. You can literally run the 100X off a V-mount battery, a power bank, or a USB-C wall plug. I've used this handheld outdoors lighting talent like I earlier mentioned during shoot, and it handled itself perfectly fine. So if you're a solo creator, a wedding filmmaker, or somebody shooting outside the studio a lot, the 100X is way more capable than it looks. I ran to test with each of the three lights, the light without reflector on, then with a third-party reflector mounted. Same distance, same camera settings, the only thing changing was what was in front of the LED. Test 1 is the bare light, no reflector, no diffusion, and this is where you see Amarans doing their homework on the optical design. All three lights, 100X, 200X, 600X, gave me very even beam spread, wide, soft fall off, no hot spot in the middle, no harsh edges at the perimeter, and critically the same shape held whether I was at 600 Kelvin or 3200 Kelvin. The color temperature wasn't changing the beam pattern, shadows came out well defined, sharp, clean, the same way you'd expect a bare COB light to behave at that distance. And what that means is that they're using the same optical bench across the whole range. The light scale up in power, but they didn't change character, which is great news if you're building a match setup because your 100X rim light will look the same as your family of lights as your 600 key. Then I put a third-party reflector on each one. Same test, and the result was interesting. This is normal. The beam concentrated right in the middle, well, thanks to the reflector, which is what a reflector is supposed to do. Narrow the throw, punch up more in the tighter area, and once again, behavior was consistent across all three lights regardless of the CCT. But there's a trade-off which you get, and that is multiple shadowing. That's not specifically an Amaran problem. It happens with most CLB style fixtures and reflectors. But I think if you're going to use a third-party modifiers, factor that in. I don't own any reflectors from Amaran, and maybe the first-party Amaran reflectors will give you a cleaner shadow. I don't know. Now to CCT Accuracy and Lux Output. I tested all this with a Lead DO1 light meter, which is what I own. It's a light meter that's getting firmware updates rolled out over the coming month, and as of right now, it doesn't support CRI, TM30, or SSI testing, although those are coming to it very soon, according to what they've said. So what I'm giving you is real-world CCT and Lux reading from the light meter, not a full spectral analysis. So at 5600 Kelvin daylight, here's what I got at 1 meter, bare COB, no reflectors on the light, 100% power, the 100x average, 5200 Kelvin, the 200x on the other hand, 5200 Kelvin, and the 600x, 5350 Kelvin. The good thing is that they are consistent across the range. Lux wise, the 100x was pushing 6300 lux, the 200x was 14,000, and the 600x was pushing 47,000 lux at around 1 meters. And to green magenta shift, which is the green magenta tint, came out clean across the board. 100x at 0 from the test I was doing, the 200x and 600x both at plus 118, which is well within the range where you might not even notice it on skin. Now at 3200 Kelvin, also at 1 meter, bare COB, no reflectors attached, and at 100%, the 100x measured 3100 Kelvin, the 200x measured 3000 Kelvin, and the 600x measured 3150. So again, they're all reading slightly cooler than the dial. The 200x had the biggest drift at 200 Kelvin. Lux output, the 100x at 5500 lux, the 200x at 12,300 lux, and the 600x at 42,000 lux. GM shift was plus 1.8 across all three, which is consistent with what I saw at daylight balance. So what does this tell us? The CCT drift is consistent across the range, which means this light is going to be predictable. You set them at 5600 Kelvin, they're all at roughly the same amount of temperature, and the lux numbers coming below Amaran's published specs at 1 meter, which is normal for real-world testing versus in-lab testing. Fan noise tests matter because if you're recording dialogue, an interview, or something like a podcast in a quiet space, the last thing you want is your key light buzzing in the background of every take. And like I earlier said, I've been running the 600X at 57% for weeks, and I've never heard the fan not once. But that's at low power where the fan barely needs to spin. So let me do a proper test for you guys. I have my Sennheiser MKH 416 just out of frame. So I'm going to run the lights at 10%, 50%, 100%, smart mode, and 100% silent mode, so you can hear for yourself what the mic actually picks up. Here in the studio, there are a few other lights which are currently on. I can hear the fan spinning, and I'll keep quiet so you can hear how the room tone sounds. So that's my room tone sound, and I'll turn on the 600X. So it's powered on currently at 7% brightness, and the fan never comes on at 7% brightness. So this is it at 7% brightness. And then I'll take it up to 10%. The fan never comes up at 10% anyways. So that's 10% brightness. And now this is 50% brightness. The fan still hasn't kicked on. It might come up after a while. And then this is the 100% brightness, and the fan still hasn't come on. So now the fan has come on, and I am at 100% brightness. It's currently in smart 100% brightness mode, and I'll go into the menu and go over to fan and change it to high. So it's at 100% brightness and at high fan mode. I can hear it from here. I don't know if the mic can pick it up. And I'll switch it to silent mode, which obviously kills the light down to a certain percentage. Okay, now I have the Halo 200X in my hand. Now it's turned on at 10% brightness. Obviously the fan isn't coming on, it's not spinning, so obviously there will be no noise from the fan. So what I'll quickly do is press the intensity button knob to take it to 50%. That's 50%, and the fan still hasn't kicked in. The fan is on this side. So that's how the room sounds with the fan at 50%. And now the problem is that there's a gardener outside doing a garden in my neighbor's yard. So mind that as well. Terrible time to do this test. And it was completely silent a while ago. So I'll press take it up to 100%. So this is 100% brightness. The fans still haven't come on. They haven't kicked in. Hopefully they come on as we speak. But I'll quickly go into the menu by pressing the back button and going to fan and click there. So it's currently at smart mode. That gardening thing is annoying. So you're hearing the gardener working. And it's in smart mode. I'll move it to high. So it's in 9 high fan speed mode. And the fans haven't even kicked in as yet. And I'll click in the fan and go down to silent. And if I press silent, it's supposed to like go down in terms of the intensity. So yes, that's silent mode. I'll click again to go into high. And hopefully it kicks in. But overall, these lights have been super quiet. That's the Halo 100X at 10% brightness. Hopefully the gardener doesn't disturb this test. And I'll quickly go to 15%. But before that, 10% brightness, the fans have not kicked in. So I'll increase the intensity to, oops. So this is 50% down. So that's 50% brightness. The fans haven't kicked in, and this is room tone. And I would quickly increase to 100%. And another thing, this is another point to tell you that when you connect the Halo 100X via DC to a V-mount battery, you can push the light to 100% brightness. But if you connect it to USB-C or via USB-C to like a power bank or a V-mount battery that has USB-C output, depending on how much the USB-C, the output of the V-mount battery is via its USB-C port, the light maxes out at 60% brightness. I think it happens for every other V-mount battery. But yeah, that's something I want you guys to know. So that 100% brightness, the fan still hasn't come on. And I'll go into the menu and go into fan mode. It's currently at smart, and I'll put it at high. And wow, the fan is on, it's at high, but you can barely hear the fan. I can hear it from here, but it's super quiet. I'll have to take it high up to the mic for you guys to hear. That's how close I am to the mic, less than 10 centimeters. So these lights are super quiet. And very quickly, the hoodie I'm wearing right now is from a brand called TexTale. They reached out and sent it over to feature in a video. It's their fresh rain repel hoodie. The whole idea behind it is that the fabric is designed to repel water-based spills. So things like water, soft drinks, room temperature coffee, milk, mild sauces like mayonnaise or tomato sauce, they roll off the fabric instead of soaking in straight away. So I'll just quickly test. I have some water here. And you can see it's rolled off completely, and I can just, nothing gets soaked in. Now, to be clear, it's not completely waterproof, and they're upfront about it. So oily stains, alcohol, anything above 60 degrees Celsius, those things are going to behave like they would on any normal cloth. But for everyday spills, especially if you're someone who is on set all day with a coffee in your hand, this is genuinely useful. That's so cool. They also do a tea version called the Fresh Stain Relax Tea, both linked in the description below. I have it in pink and black. Very, very nice fabric. They feel so nice on me. And if you grab one, you're supporting the channel at no extra cost to you. Now, to the actual buying guide, I would say get the Halo 100X. If you're a solo creator working in a smaller space, I need something that can power off USB-C or a V-mount battery or even a power bank. It's also a brilliant little fixture for lens test, B-roll, or as a dedicated hair or rim light if you're building out a multi-point setup. And remember, it's got full Bowens mount, so every modifier you have should just work with it. The 200X, which is lighting me up right now, get this if you're firing through a softbox. Get the Halo 200X if you're building a standard YouTube talking head setup like this in a normal size room. You want one fixture that pushes through properly a softbox at 30% to 40% brightness. Currently is at 23% and have a reflector on it without overwhelming the space. And honestly, if I had to pick one of these for most people watching this video, it definitely would be the 200X. But get this Halo 600X if you're working in a bigger space, you want to bounce off ceilings, for example, for that natural room feel, or you're trying to hold your own against maybe window lights coming in behind you. And if you shoot beyond YouTube, narrative, commercial, music videos, and you want one fixture that crosses over between studio and set, get the Halo 600X. Run it at 10 to 15% or 7% like I have it now with a reflector on and also a diffuser in front of it. And honestly, it's the cleanest light you can buy at this price. So for whichever one you pick, just know that lighting doesn't make your channel succeed. Your script makes your channel succeed, your edit, your delivery, the thing you actually have to say. Lighting is just the cheapest way to signal that you're serious about it. But your lighting is your virtual signature, and after a few weeks of running the 600X as my daily key light plus testing the 200 and the 100X, I can tell you Amaran has earned a place in my heart. Links to all three Amaran Halos and the description below, along with the Elite Deal 1 light meter. If you got any questions about which one fits your specific setup, drop it in the comments. I read everything. And while you're down there, I'll also drop a link to the hoodie and the tees from TexTale. Drop me a 1, a 2, or a 3, depending on which Halo light fits your setup best. 1 for 100X, 2 for the 200X, and 3 for the 600X. I want to see where most of you land. If you're piecing together your studio setup off the back of this video, the next one you want to watch is my exposure tutorial on the Filmware SC6, where I break down how to actually use false color and zebras to nail skin tones like mine. All right, that's it. It's the Filmmaker. I'll see you in the next one. God bless and peace.